One of the narratives that's come out of Saturday's UFC 313 main event between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev is that the fight was boring, and I'm seeing a lot of news articles come out that have quoted Alex Pereira saying that he said the fight was boring. But if you look a little bit deeper, I think he's being misquoted here. You guys let me know here in the comments. My name is James Lynch, so this is just one article I found online. If you type in Alex Pereira boring on Google right now, you'll get articles that are similar to this. But let's actually go through and read what Pereira says, because I think what's happened is people are using this as sort of evidence to use their own narrative, which is that the fight was boring, which the fight was not boring, guys. Was it the most exciting fight in the world? No, but I got a few things I'm going to mention here that, you know, kind of back up my claim that it really wasn't that boring. So first, let's read the title here. It says, Alex Pereira blasts Magomed Ankalaev after unpopular UFC light heavyweight defeat, quote unquote boring. So you're reading this, you're thinking that Pereira said the fight was boring, but let's dig a little bit deeper into the actual quote. And the other thing I got to mention with this too, guys, it's going from Portuguese to English. Stuff could be lost in translation. So people taking this as something he's actually saying. If he's fluent in English, it's one thing, but there's a translator involved, so things could get misconstrued. But I even had people on my live stream Saturday night after the UFC 313 saying, can you believe Pereira said that the fight was boring? I actually read the quote. It's not really what he's saying. So let's actually go and read it right here. So you'll see what he says after this. He says, so again, another quote that they highlight here is Ankalaev didn't really do anything. Okay, so that quote right there, Ankalaev didn't really do anything, doesn't mean that the fight is boring. So there's that. Second thing he says, so he says, speaking after the bout via interpreter, Pereira appeared to be struggling to comprehend how he lost to Ankalaev, which I don't think he really said that. This is what he says. This is the actual quote, and this was in the octagon after the fight. You can watch the video here. He says, he put some pressure in the second round with strikes, but putting me up against the cage, he didn't really do anything. I don't think that's a terrible thing to say. If you're putting someone against the cage, you're not inflicting any damage. That's a true statement. That doesn't mean it's boring. He's just saying that's part of the strategy. We followed our strategy. We know he puts people against the fence. Spelled against wrong in this article, by the way. He says he puts people against the fence and he plays that game. Giving him the win with a game plan like that, it incentivizes people to do that. Now, here's the actual part where he says boring, but keep in mind how he says it. People might say it's a boring style, but when a guy gets a win doing that, it makes people want to do that. People might say it's a boring style. He's not saying it's boring. He's saying other people might say that it's a boring style. We have this with Mario Batista and Jose Aldo. Same sort of thing. Batista puts Aldo against the cage and ends up winning, and people hated him for it. He became like public enemy number one. But Ankalaev, yes, he did that in this fight, but that wasn't the whole fight, guys. There were parts of the fight where he did this, but Ankalaev actually won on striking. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a second here. And this is where I think people are totally out to lunch saying it was a boring fight. If you look at the actual stats here between these two, Ankalaev and Pereira, Ankalaev outlanded Pereira 94 to 180 strikes compared to 76 to 137. Now, again, this significant strikes are not the be all end all with data, but if Ankalaev's outstriking Pereira, how is it a boring fight? It's not like he wrestled him or he, held him against the cage the entire fight. You're not getting 94 strikes throughout a fight if you're holding him against the cage the whole time. And again, you look at the stats here, he did outland him overall. I know there were some rounds where Pereira did outstrike him, round 1, round 3, and then I guess technically round 5 as well. But if you look at the overall strikes, Pereira didn't outland Ankalaev. Ankalaev outlanded him 94 to 180. So all he's saying here, from what I'm taking away from this, is he's saying, look, part of Ankalaev's game plan was holding me up against the cage. It helps him win the round because he's neutralizing my stand-up. I can't do anything if I'm pinned against the cage. And when he's saying it incentivizes people to do that, that's probably a smart strategy. What would be better? Ankalaev continuing to stand and trade and potentially being knocked out? Because again, Pereira can knock out pretty much anyone at 205. Or is it better for him to do that? Now, do I love this style? Absolutely not. I don't like people being held up against the cage. I'm with people on that. But there's this sort of made up narrative from fans and people. And again, articles like this don't help, where there's this narrative that the fight was boring. I don't think it was boring. Again, there was the end of the second round where, Ankalaev, cracked Pereira, nearly finished him in that sequence before the bell rang. He's getting some strikes in there. I'd say if you added up the overall fight and you said who was more of a threat of finishing the fight, it would have been Ankalaev. It wouldn't have been Pereira. That's what made this fight so interesting. A lot of people going in felt that Ankalaev's only way to win this fight was to wrestle and to grapple, and he couldn't even really do that. He tried to take Pereira down, but to Pereira's credit, his takedown defense has improved a ton. I think he stuffed all 10 takedowns total. So again, he's being misquoted here, because he's saying people might say it's a boring style. If Pereira had said, you know what, he just has a boring style, that's why I lost the fight, that's different. He's literally throwing it to other people and saying people might say that, which he's right about. There are people who think that's a boring style. I just gave you the example with Mario Batista. Same sort of thing. So yeah, and then I think there's a quote here from Ariel as well. Let's see what else we have. Ankalaev then responds to him as well, saying that, and then there's some quote about him running away. I don't know where this is from because Pereira did not, or unless Ankalaev saying that he ran away. I can't remember. He says Ankalaev blasts back for Pereira for running away. Everybody thought Alex Pereira was the most exciting striker you saw. It seemed as though, and by the way, another thing can we stop doing? Stop quoting Magomed Ankalaev from his Twitter account. He doesn't speak English, okay? His manager is known to have tweeted for other fighters that he represents. It's him talking, not Ankalaev. So people writing this, I know you have to because it's coming from his official account, but let's be honest here. It's his manager tweeting that. So, and he's known to talk a bunch of trash as well. So it's Ankalaev actually says for 20 minutes, the guy was running away from me. So again, I just don't like how Pereira is being misquoted. I don't mind if you didn't think it was the most exciting fight ever, but again, this narrative, and I see it from people in my YouTube comments after the fight saying that all Ankalaev did was held him against the cage. That's not what happened. It was very minimal that he was doing that. He won this fight on striking overall. That's how he got it done. Would it have been great for him not to use the grappling against the cage? Absolutely. But that's, again, part of the strategy. If Pereira did not want to be held against the cage, push him away and try and strike with him. That's part of the fight. You got to make it exciting yourself. It takes two to tango. So again, I don't like how Pereira is being misquoted. I don't like how the fans are running with this narrative that the fight was really boring. Again, you get fans saying that anyways. There's fights that were like good that fans keep saying was boring. You know, you just hear this because fans are very, unless there's a knockout, every fight's boring according to the fans, right? A lot of fans feel that way. But yeah, again, the thing that I don't like here is I feel like Pereira, because again, when I was on my stream on Saturday night, there was people being like, can you believe Pereira called the fight boring? But if you actually read the quote, he's not really saying that. All he's saying is that the overall summary of it is saying that people might say it's boring. It makes people want to do that as well. He's saying that, like, he's actually saying like, hey, it was an effective strategy. It might not be the most exciting thing, but it's an effective strategy. And it clearly was because he won the fight. So just wanted to get my thoughts on that because again, I was ready to do a video talking about Pereira calling this fight boring. And then when I actually heard what he said, I'm like, no. He did not call it boring. He was throwing it to other people saying like, I could see how fans think it's boring. That's basically what he's saying in this. So again, I know these sites, they got to write this. If you just, explained it how I did, you're not going to get as many clicks on the article. I get that, but I wish people would read into this a little bit more. Cause again, Pereira, and again, if Pereira really thought he was boring, why is that the only quote he has? He could have just said something like, you know what? I don't know if the fans like that fight, but I didn't. That was really boring. I wouldn't want to win like that. He could have said that and he didn't. So again, this is where people, I think, are blowing Pereira's comments out of proportion. And, again, I don't think Pereira said anything out of line here. So people got to relax about that. That's kind of my overall thoughts. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you reading the quote the same way I am? Because again, I don't think he's out here talking about the fight being boring. He's disappointed in the fight. He mentioned the strategy of Ankalaev holding him up against the cage, but it's not like he said he did that the whole fight. There was parts of the fight that he did that, but I just showed you the significant strikes. Ankalaev landed a lot, guys. You got to give him credit. That's one thing that I think is being lost in all this. I'm seeing a lot of like Alex was off, all this stuff. If you're going to say that, you also got to give credit to Ankalaev for coming in there and, coming forward on Pereira and putting him on his back foot. And that's ultimately what won him the fight. So let me know what you think in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.